Hi everyone, welcome to this week's IGTV. Today I'm talking about why do smart kids struggle in school? I mean, if they're smart, why won't they do the work? Why don't they put in the effort? Why are they so anxious? And then why do they seem to struggle in other areas of their life when they seem to get like straight A's and it's not a problem at school? Are they just being defiant and lazy, like because they just don't want to? Or is it like you need to have more discipline, more consequences? What is going on? Okay, today I want to talk to you about this very real topic. So if this sounds familiar to you, you are in the right place. If this sounds familiar like to someone that you know, a friend or family member, I'd love if you share it with them once I finish and I post this here on Instagram. My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I'm one of only 70 people in Canada to hold both designations, and I've been working primarily with parents of teens and tweens for the last 16 years to help them end the painful disconnection, the baffling blow-ups and stressful silences to create relationships, lasting relationships based on trust, mutual trust and respect. I was a smart kid. I was actually a gifted kid. I was supposed to skip a grade, but I didn't. My parents didn't feel that was a good idea socially. So instead I was put in gifted classes. Like in grade 1, I had my own math book and a reading book. I was the only grade 1 that arrived in class and I could read already. In grade 4 and 5, I was taken out of my regular classes once a week and go do schooling with this gifted class, which I got kicked out of because I couldn't pay attention. And then in my later high school years, my junior and senior year, or grade 11 and 12, depending what country you're watching from, I was put in international baccalaureate, so higher and advanced classes, and completely bombed. Yes, I did. I went from straight A's, award-winning academic and athletic student, straight A's, to F's, and failing out. And there's a lot more research behind this now. So I'm going to share my personal experience, but I want you to understand if you're dealing with your teenager who's like super smart, but they're not living up to their potential. They don't seem to, if they get good grades, but they don't really try, they're just kind of sloughing through. Then I want to talk to you about that. Okay, I got a lot of notes here. So let's dig in. If you're watching on Instagram, I would love a follow. And if you're here on YouTube, I would love a subscribe. Okay, so let's bring this back to beginning years of school. So elementary school, okay? Not necessarily primary, but, could be primary. I mean, if you're a parent, right, you put your child in school and you kind of hope for the best. You have some idea of your child's level of academic performance or intelligence at home, having raised them, but until they hit school, you don't really know, right? You're hoping for the best. So then they go off to school one day and you do your crying and you're like, my baby's growing up, and then they hit school and you find out pretty quickly, in kindergarten or grade 1, you start to figure out, okay, they're either, if they're middle of the road, you don't find out much. They're just middle of the road, right? But if they're very advanced, the teacher's probably letting you know that this is a child that's like been assessed or is very advanced, or if they are falling behind. Now I'm talking particularly about the kids who are advanced, because tell me if as a parent, now my kids were, my oldest particularly was very academically advanced. That feels great, doesn't it? Type yes in the comments. That feels great for your ego, right? When you get the messages from the teacher that are like, wow, Johnny or Jane are super advanced. I'm wondering if we could, look at other academic avenues to challenge them or something, or your child's so smart. Your child's amazing. I love your child and they're so well behaved and blah, 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 right? Come on. That feels good, right? Yeah, it does. I know, because I did it too. I totally loved it. Yes, I did love it. Thank you so much. Because I didn't realize I had my own insecurities. And yes, we're going to talk about the other side of that. My own insecurities as a human being. And so I really felt that like my kids were an extension of my worth and my value. And so when they were praised for their academic performance at school, I felt better as a parent. I'm just going to say to you right now, how your child does at school does not have anything to do with the kind of parent you are. Okay? Okay. So if your child is middle of the road, you're a great parent. If your child is academically advanced, you're a great parent. If your child really struggles academically, you're a great parent. Okay? All right, good. Just so we're on the same page. Academics have nothing to do with your parenting. Nothing. Okay. So here's where this all plays in though, because I want to go back to how it feels good for you as a parent, right? It felt good for me too, to be praised because my child was very, very academically advanced, particularly my oldest. The teachers were like, this kid, like, they were letting him do stuff that was 1 and 2 and 3 grades ahead in math and science because he was just ferocious. And we didn't know then that he was autistic. We didn't know then he had ADHD. So that his obsessiveness with knowledge, and, you know, we know that now. As a child for myself, who I also have ADHD, but that was not diagnosed until much later in my adult years, I also had that obsessiveness and I was academically advanced. So what ends up happening with this with this existentialism where parents are feeding your own ego based on your child's academics, okay, is that because of the way we were raised, that's it, just because of the way we were raised, that you are a better moral parent. You are morally better if you raised an intelligent child. That's bullshit. Yeah. And that, so as parents, and you were probably raised this way too, that what your parents commented on was your grades, your external performance, right? Your parents looked at your report card and decided how lovable you were, or how worthy of praise you were, or if you would get extra privileges. It was all based on how you were performing at school. Type yes in the comments if that sounds familiar. That your lovability, your worth, your value, your pleasingness to your parents was very much dictated by that piece of paper, by letter grades, by number percentages, by comments home from the teacher. That was how you earned your value. And now here we are as parents, and we are doing the same thing. And there is a lot of science showing how troubling that is on mental health, which we know from our own generation, right? So what happens for the smart kid at school who's being raised in a home, and again, this isn't a judgment thing, okay? This is generational. We're just talking about the facts based on research of generation. This is not damning or judging, okay? That's not where I'm going. So smart kids who are raised in homes where they are praised for their performance begin to identify with, I am loved when I am smart, right? I am loved, I am lovable, I have value, I have worth, I'm worthy of praise. Or what I experienced in my situation was, I am safe from ridicule. I am safe from criticism. I am safe from emotional attack when I perform at school. Now, smart kids do that easily, but they begin to sew this into a form of their identity. It becomes not what they are capable of, it becomes who they are. And there's a big difference in our psyches, okay? I am capable of, I'm capable of a lot of things. I can go and try a lot of things. I am gonna suck at a lot of them, but I am gonna go and try. I'm capable, I can go try. When I identify with something, I am the smart kid, my self-confidence and my self-esteem becomes wrapped up in being the smart kid, and it is reinforced at home because I learn I am lovable, worthy of value, praise, and affection when I am smart. So now my self-esteem and my psyche, my identity becomes wrapped up in being the smart kid. This is totally what happened for me. Okay, it's totally 100% what happened to me, is that I was that smart kid. So now school was like super easy for me, especially in the elementary grades. Like it was boring. It was boring easy. I'm smart, but I had a photographic memory, which nobody knew. And my dad actually has a photographic memory too. So literally I could just look at things. And because the entire institution of school is based on rote learning, which is you consume something and then you spit out exactly what you saw or consumed. It's not about a lot of thinking or creativity. And we have a lot of data around that too, that you are supposed to shove in all this information and then regurgitate it. So with a photographic memory, that was easy for me. I wasn't actually thinking. I was literally just recalling memory. There's a big difference. Big difference, okay? So what happened for smart kids is smart kids don't learn any learning. They're not actually necessarily learning. They are correctly regurgitating in a system, an institution that rewards regurgitating what went in to what went out. Smart kids aren't necessarily thinking, processing, learning, and they most certainly do not have study skills. They're not learning study skills. They don't have to. I didn't have to. All I had to do was show up to class, look at a piece of paper. I remembered it, and they're like, do this. And I'm like, okay, great, easy. Done. Bing, bing. Yes, I was learning. Okay, I should be careful about that. I was learning, and I was a voracious learner with math and science. And that I know now was my ADHD, that dopamine. The math and the science fulfilled my dopamine hit. And so I appeared as though I was learning it really quickly and wanted more of it, when really that was just a dopamine path for me. And there is a big difference for ADHD as well, okay? So we've got smart kids who are identifying their entire, their self-esteem and self-worth with being a smart kid, which is reinforced at home based on performance-based parenting, which is you are lovable and worthy, and if you perform. They, now here's the hitch. If you hear this one thing out of this video, I want you to hear this, because this is exactly what happened for me. The more grades went on where I could easily perform and get the affirmation around my performance being lovable at home and at school. School is a performance-based institution, okay? The lower my confidence got. Okay, now follow me on this. Through the elementary grades, grade 1 to 3, my confidence went up because I was like, ooh, I can do this. I'm good at something. I was not affirmed a lot at home, if at all. And so it was something I felt I was good at. And it felt good to find something I was good at. So my confidence went up until about grade 3, grade 4, okay? Then the smarter I got, okay, and the more years went on where I could easily perform, my confidence went down. My self-esteem became more precarious because remember, it's wrapped up entirely in the identity of being the smart kid. Smart kids lack resilience. Resilience is the ability to do hard things and be in a struggle and know that because something feels hard or I need to struggle through to learn and succeed out the other side, that it doesn't make me a bad person. So what was happening is as my smartness kept progressing and I was going up and I didn't really need to try, my fear of trying went down because I was less and less willing to risk not being the smart kid. I only knew how to succeed when things were easy. It's like you have a championship team in sports. It doesn't take anything to win. Like, I'm not saying you don't work. I'm saying emotionally, when you are on a team that wins every game, you probably emotionally suck. Again, this has been studied a lot because you have never had to lose. Losing is where the emotional game comes in. How do you lose? And what do you do when you lose? I never had that experience. Everything was easy. Sports, easy, top, winning all the time. Academics, sit down, look at it, regurgitate it, easy, done. I'd grown up in an academic environment, not in my home environment, but in an academic environment where things were easy. So unlike other kids who had to really apply themselves and think and struggle a little bit to learn, I didn't have that. And all of a sudden, I remember when I hit grade 6 and 7, all of a sudden was when, now not only did I hit puberty, so for girls, which is around, between 10 to 12, you hit the tween years, and self-esteem normally drops up to 30% anyway. Fun, right? Yeah, self-esteem drops up to 30% because the adolescent brain development is actually rewriting a whole sense of identity anyway. So not only was all work already starting to get a little harder, even though I could kind of ace it, if you said the word exam to me, I literally went into a full-on stress response. Because exams meant I needed to somehow understand how to study. I had no idea how to do that. I just knew how to look at stuff and I would remember it. That's all I knew how to do. I didn't understand how to fully apply the knowledge I was learning. I just knew how to regurgitate the learning that I was learning, the knowledge I was learning, okay? And so my resilience to try anything that wasn't easy was going down. My self-esteem and confidence was becoming more and more precarious because I could already feel this sense of being the smart kid was not like, it was at risk. Okay. So when my entire identity and being loved is wrapped up in being the smart kid, what do you think happens when things feel hard for a smart kid? I just stopped trying. I stopped trying because, now before you go dogging your kid about this, if you did something for, 10 years, 8 years, if you did one thing, like a part of your career, a part of your job, and you did it for 8 to 10 years and you were amazing at it, okay? Like you were the company's go-to person, you were the top person, you got financially rewarded for that, okay? So performance-based, you got rewarded for it. For 8 to 10 years, you were the expert, the go-to person. First of all, yes, your ego does identify with being that good person in your psyche. You begin to tie your worth to your external performance because that is how our brains are wired. And then all of a sudden, you go to work one day and you don't know what happened, but you cannot seem to compute that stuff anymore. And no matter what you do internally, because it's very much an internal process, the terror and the fear that shows up when all of a sudden you have no control. For some reason, you are no longer that smart person. You just cannot show up as the expert, but you don't know why. How would you feel? You'd probably get demoted, right? You're no longer the CEO and your boss's favorite. You're no longer the expert that everybody turns to. Imagine for just 1 second what would happen to your mental health if that happened for you. And you didn't know why. It was nothing you did. Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden you weren't sleeping at night. It wasn't that you changed your diet. It's just all of a sudden you just can't do it. When you haven't learned to struggle to study actual learning and study skills to adapt and apply knowledge, you have a very low resilience and you have a very precarious self-esteem and confidence because you've tied your entire identity to being the smart kid. And that is what happened to me. Yes. So, okay. So I just going to my notes here. Okay. So this is what also happens with ADHD. ADHD is often identified in young boys at around 8 to 10. But ADHD often does not get fully identified in girls until they're adults, even though it begins to show up at around 12 to 14. Because for girls, ADHD, the H, the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the H, the hyperactivity, is internal. It is 100 tabs open at a time. It is a constant hypervigilance of what are people thinking? What are they saying? What should I do now? Whereas with boys, it is more often external, overt, and behavioral. I can't sit still. I need movement all the time. I need to be touching things, throwing things, fidgeting, things like that. Girls, because this is how we're raised in a patriarchal environment, but this is another topic, is we are taught to be pleasing and quiet and still. And so we have this hypervigilant dialogue inside. And so many girls go under the radar and are not diagnosed. Hi, that was me. But instead, we're shamed and shit on because we can no longer be the smart kid, because all of a sudden, the work gets harder. And that's when ADHD kicks in. ADHD kicks in when the work gets harder. Not because your teenager's lazy, and not because your teenager only likes it when it's fun and easy. Not because your teenager is irresponsible. Not because your teenager is just so lazy that they refuse to do it when it's hard. No, that's because that's when ADHD kicks in. ADHD is not intentional. ADHD is a physiological wiring of the brain. 25% of your neurons in your entire brain are right here at the back of your brain. So when you take your hand down the back of your skull and you feel that little indent, right there is your cerebellum. The cerebellum has 25% of the neurons in your entire body. When you need to concentrate, aka learning, is when your cerebellum gets the highest amount of blood flow because it's on fire. It's learning. It's doing stuff. Right? Okay, when you have an ADHD brain, your brain is wired backwards. So rather than sending more blood flow to the cerebellum when you are required to concentrate and to learn, my brain, maybe your teenager's brain, removes blood flow from the cerebellum. Removes. That is why the concentration span of an ADHD teenager is 15 to 20 minutes. And after that, they're just staring at a piece of paper and their brain doesn't have the neuroconnectivity, the oomph, the fuel in the engine to continue focusing and concentrating. Okay, there's a whole lot of other things that ADHD impacts. Well, you'd have to ask your child. And you would know. So here's an example. This is a really good friend of mine, okay, whose child is getting crapped on at school because when it comes to homework, like getting homework done or take home exams that they're allowed to do at home, so they can like do 15 minutes and get up and take a break and go. This student gets 80%, okay, on pretty much everything that can be done at home at his own pace. It's shocking when I saw his grades and I was about to go march into that school district's office. Like it's 2023. Anyway, every single grade of a homework or take home exam that he did was at least in the 80s. Every single quiz done at school under a time limit, which increases anxiety and performance, which are crippling in ADHD, his grades 39%, 36%, 42%. Now, what would you do if you saw a child who got all these 80s when they work at home on their own pace, but nothing but 40s when they're under a time pressure and concentration with high anxiety at school? That's ADHD, people. Now, ADHD shows up as anxiety, okay? But I just want to go back. I don't want this whole thing about ADHD. This is about the smart kid syndrome. Smart kids are also often bored at school. I was bored. I had ADHD, but they didn't know that then. So I would learn as long as my brain found it fascinating, because when my brain finds it fascinating, I get all the blood flow that my brain needs to my cerebellum, and I am ferocious, and I'm in there like a hungry animal that's never been fed. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I can't necessarily decide. This is all science too. This isn't just like fluff out my butt I'm talking, okay? I don't get to decide necessarily what my brain finds fascinating. So when it came to social studies, English, and I couldn't read anything for a long period. I can't focus on a page. My life changed forever when audiobooks became available. I had so much shame about not being able to read for long periods of time. So I was like at 100%. So I used to help my friends do their math and their science. So they would give me notes on English novels and like the high level of a social studies thing. Because I just couldn't, I needed numbers to be able to get my dopamine going. And dopamine, by the way, is the hormone in the body that helps rev up the cerebellum so you get more focus in there. So these smart kids will struggle because their self-esteem has been tied and affirmed through their external performance and grades. And the longer that goes on, the more they identify with being a smart kid, the lower their resilience, because they've never had to try and get it wrong or try and struggle, which is, struggle is required to be resilient. You're not resilient if things are always easy, okay? And their self-esteem and confidence becomes more and more precarious because it's tied to this identity. That's what happened for me. So when I stopped trying, smart kids don't go ask for help. Shocker. Smart kids don't ask for help because that flies in the face of my entire identity. I'm the kid that other kids come and ask for help. I'm the student who the teacher would ask to help other kids. Do you really think that all of a sudden when it's hard and I can't do it, that I'm going to risk the humiliation, and that is what happens in the brain, the humiliation of going to ask for help? Because that is outside of my identity. It's outside of what my psyche knows and feels safe in. It is so unsafe for me to try and fail, because I've never had to try and fail when I'm a smart kid, let alone ask for help. You can tell me that asking for help is all, because at home, when as the smart kid, when it's like, oh, you're such an easy kid, we don't have to sit and do our homework with you, like you just get yours done. And I did homework, but it was just like, again, it was all regurgitation. It was pretty easy. So here's what you can do. Okay, if you're dealing with the smart kid, now, you can start this now, let alone if you have a smart kid that all of a sudden is not doing their work. They're just not performing the way that they did. Something shifted, and it's usually in junior high or senior high, okay? That is when the adolescent brain begins its massive renovation that also your teenager has no control over, and nobody tells them it's gonna happen. And all of this stuff that they can't just like be easy anymore. Stop affirming their grades. Stop it. Stop tying your value as a parent to their external performance. You already have amazing value as a parent. You're already amazing. You're here. You're watching. You're an incredible parent. You don't need your child's report card to be your parenting report card. We need to stop this. Stop it. It is very toxic, even if it's what we were taught. Not because our parents are bad, because this is a generational thing, okay? Stop tying, like making big deals out of report cards and deciding if your child is lovable or worth affirming and pleasing to you based on letters on a freaking piece of paper or numbers, comments from teachers. Stop going to parent-teacher interviews when your kid is smart so that you can hear the teacher say more positive things about your kid. Stop it. That's an issue. And I'm telling it to you straight. That is an issue. You go find ways to fill your cup, but it is not your child's responsibility to perform so they fill your cup. That's what you can do, is you fill your own cup. Now, when you stop affirming performance and you start asking your child, how do you feel about school? Shocker. How do you feel about school? What do you enjoy about school? If somebody ever asked me, I would have said, I love math and I love science and I love computing numbers and I love that and I love helping other people. And they'd be like, that's so great. Nobody ever said that to me. What do you love about school? What do you believe about yourself? What's easy in school? What feels hard? Start talking about who they are and what they're doing, not what they are achieving. That's what you can do. You can also start to normalize struggle. If you have a smart kid, that's the kid that you need to challenge with other things. You need to find things that they find difficult and hard, not from a sake of punishment, but something that you could do together where you learn something that is hard and that you learn something that you both have to try at. And maybe you hate it and you never do it again. Who cares? You're building resilience so they learn that they can try hard things and it does not need to question their character, value, or worth to try something hard and fail at it. Try something hard and decide to keep trying at it till you're good at it. Try something that's not easy, because as the smart kid, when everything comes easy, let me tell you for free, my world started to get really small by the time I hit high school in the number of things I was willing to have in my life, because if they weren't easy, I did not have the resilience, self-esteem, or confidence to try anything that wasn't easy. So I was the smart kid who won awards in athletics, but I was not the kid who was out there trying anything new, because my entire identity was wrapped up in being the smart kid. So normalize struggle. That builds confidence and resilience. Talk about how they feel about school. What about their relationships with their teachers? What do they like about this teacher? What don't they like about this teacher? Stop putting all the focus on external performance. And if your child was the smart kid and all of a sudden they have begun avoiding, which is what I did, it got so hard for me so fast when I was put in more advanced classes in my junior and senior year that it was like all of a sudden having a fire hose in my mouth. My ADHD was kicking in because things weren't just easy anymore. So I didn't have the dopamine. I had no study skills. I didn't know how to ask for help. And so I just avoided. I stopped showing up to school. I stopped doing homework. I just said, nope. This is so far out of my psyche and unsafe for me that I went into survival. And I went from A's to F's and failing out. And I actually just found my report card I did fail out. And I also almost failed out of university because it was even harder then. Nobody knew I had ADHD, and I still didn't know how to concentrate. I couldn't concentrate for that long because I had ADHD. That's not a choice thing. I didn't have the study skills or coping techniques to work with my ADHD. I didn't have the medication or support to work with my brain that I was given. But I made it through with a whole lot of ridicule, shame, criticism, emotional abandonment. extraordinarily low self-confidence to the point I tried to take my life. Because I had learned that my only worth and value was tied into my external performance and the letters that were produced on a report card, not by who I was. And nobody ever asked me. So yes, CrossFit, that's a great tool to get into physicality. Even if they're not a jock, CrossFit is great for building confidence and trying hard things, so long as the instructors are not performance-based. If the instructors are all about getting new PBs and doing the WOD, the workout of the day, leave, run fast. This is about your kids showing up. This is just about them trying and what they're learning about themselves and their bodies. So be very, very careful of that. Oh, yes, it is very tragic because we were raised this way. So again, I don't have any shame. Like, look, I did it too. We were raised to believe that your worth and value as a human being is what you can perform as. And so we are raising our children that way. And we have so much psychology and relationship study to show how toxic this is. It builds codependency because my worth is tied to something other than just myself. Builds codependency. It increases anxiety through the roof. Then we have all of these mental health epidemics that are going on. Our school system institution is broken. It is not set up to support teachers. It is not set up to support students. It is set up to support those that can fit within the box of the institution, who can learn and regurgitate what they've learned in a way that the system says is right and wrong. Because God forbid, if you fall below the average, you are called out, you are criticized, you are the dumb kid, you're put in special classes. There's nothing that is positive about that kind of learning environment. And I am pro-teacher. I'm just saying the system is broken. If this sounds like something that you want more support on, once I get this posted to Instagram and over to YouTube, type support in the comments and I will send you quick access to my free masterclass with my proven 3-step framework that I put together based on being this teen that went through all of this, raising 2 kids, one who has autism and ADHD. I have ADHD. 16 years of helping parents of teens and being a certified coach and relationship systems coach. I've put it in a 3-step framework that's really break down step by step, easy to digest, powerful insights, and all backed by science. So type support and I will get that link to you for my free masterclass. I'm here to help. I've been your teen and I'm also raised a kid like that. So we don't have to do this alone. We can do it together and it can be a better experience for you and it can be a better experience for your teen. Thanks for being here. I will see you next Thursday. Bye, everybody.